Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online. And I have been having a lot of technical issues with Star Trek Online recently. Some of my testing hasn't been going as great as I've been wanting. It's been going a lot slower, is what it basically comes down to. So today is kind of like a filler video. It's not one that's particularly super important to watch. So if you're someone that like just want to watch super important videos, this is one that you could probably skip without really worrying too much. Any of the standard stuff in this video, I will be covering in their little bits of importance in later videos, probably on Sundays. Um, but yeah, in this video today, I'm going to go over my Discovery Captain's build on her ship. And this video is very different because most of the times when I talk about a video, I talk about a particular energy type. And I have a different captain for each energy type. My Discovery Captain is different though, because I guess I've already done, well, I already have different captains for each energy type. There's two that I'm withholding for two very different reasons, but in later videos you'll see why. Because I've already done the energy types from my other captains, this captain couldn't do the normal types. I wanted this captain to be a Proton captain with just all Proton weapons, but Cryptic still won't let us use full Proton weapons in the game at the moment, so this is the best alternative, which is a Rainbow build. And yeah, a lot of you are probably going to immediately turn off from this, and that's totally fine. This is my Rainbow build. That's a work in progress. I do need to get to tier 6 reputation before I can have the full weapon layout for this. I am stealing a weapon from one of my other builds on a different character for this build, just so that it works. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the theory. So most of these weapons I'm using are going to be reputation set weapons. The reason is because at tier 6 reputation for each reputation, you get an additional 2% bonus damage for your set weapons. What that means is that assuming that there's a set weapon with the what weapon stats that you're wanting, or if it's a set weapon that you can re-roll to get the modifiers that you want, it's highly advisable to use that set weapon inside of your build, assuming that it's a beam array or a cannon that works inside your build, because it's overall going to be doing more damage in that theory and sense. Now, obviously, not all weapons can be re-rolled like this guy can, or re-engineered. Sorry, a lot of set weapons can't, and so a lot of your super high-end DPS guys aren't going to be changing their builds because of this. But for those of them that already had been using set weapons or have been debating using set weapons, a lot of them might switch and use more set reputation weapons in the future due to that tier 6 change. There's also going to be a huge amount of trait changes that's going to be occurring. Y'all will probably start to see that pretty soon for a lot of people's traits, because, I mean, with this captain, I've had issues logging into the game. I've already gotten her up to 120,000 reputation for almost all of the reputations at this point. Which means if you get started at 100,000 reputation, and I already had the bonuses for all this stuff there, most of them that have been logging in every single day should be extremely close to getting tier 6 reputation on any of their old captains inside the game. Which means a lot of them will start to experiment with the new tier 2 ranks of all of the traits inside the game. So yeah, that's going to be interesting watching different channels and seeing how they react to the different traits, how different testings works for different people, especially a couple of the DPS guys on the SGR Reddit page. Just seeing how they apply to different things. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the weapons themselves. Of course, my number one weapon is still going to be the Advanced Piezo Polearm Beam Array. It's a reputation weapon, so it's going to get that 2% bonus damage at tier 6 reputation, which is pretty nice. Plus, it has the Piezo Polearm proc. So it's overall a really nice weapon overall. The next weapon is the Terran Task Force Disruptor Beam Array. So this weapon is pretty cool because For one, it has the Withering Disruptor radiation proc on it, which, if those of you that watched my energy tanking build, or energy tanking video anyway, that talk about all the different energy types, the ref ones, this one has the Withering Disruptor proc, plus another passive that it does additional damage based upon how low the hull of the enemies that you're fighting are. So it's got the Withering Disruptor radiation proc for that. That's the number 2 disruptor damage tanking type inside the game. Plus it has another thing to deal even more damage. So this is fully crying out that basically for anyone using disruptor weapons for tanking, you should be having this weapon on your ship. Just saying. Third weapon here is the Dyson Proton weapon, also known as the Experimental Proton weapon in the set description of the Protonic Arsenal. It's kind of funny that in the updating of Dyson Proton weapon that they didn't change the text for the Experimental Proton weapon, but it's probably something that they didn't notice for importance overall inside the game. But most people know exactly what it means overall. This is a really weird weapon because it's an energy weapon and a cannon in one. So it's really weird in that aspect. You do have to get the 2-piece set in order to be able to use Beam Fire at will with this weapon, and you need the full 3 set with the Gravimetric Photon Torpedo Launcher in order to be able to use cannon rapid fire with this weapon. So if you're actually going to use a cannon build with the Dyson Proton and you're using regular single cannons, you actually could just do the cannon scatter volley, and you wouldn't need any of the Protonic Arsenal on your ship. You could have 5 cannons in front with 3 turrets in the back, and you'd be able to do it just fine. But anyway, that was a consideration that I was thinking about when I was making this video. But I decided to go with beams because that just made more sense for me, because I really like beams. But the next weapon is Antiproton, which I'm using the Advanced Temporal Defense Chronotype Beam Array from the Temporal Defense Reputation Tier 4. This one has the Enhanced Chronotonic Stabilization. I talked about it in the energy video as well. The Chronotype Beam Arrays from that reputation are the best ones for Antiproton. So this is the set version, and this does a tiny bit more damage too. So it's a really nice weapon. This is a placeholder. This is actually stolen from my Tetrion beam build for my Klingon captain. But I needed it because I don't have access to Tier 6 reputation yet for the Iconian reputation. It's basically the weapon that I'm going to be using eventually is going to be this guy, but it's Tier 6 variant. And the Advanced Radiant weapon at Tier 6, it will be an Advanced Radiant Tetrion Beam Array. Unfortunately, with set weapons inside the game right now, with all the different sets in the game, we don't have any Tetrion beam arrays. We do have a few Tetrion beam banks. We do have a couple of Tetrion turrets. We don't have Tetrion beam arrays right now with the regular reputations. With Tier 6, I think we get like 1 or 2. And so of all the ones I looked at, this one is the one that looked like the best one. Plus considering that this guy already is a one that gives me shield resistance, I felt it'd be redundant to have 2 that had kind of like gave the same type of proc. But this is a good filler for now because I had a Tetrion build that already had epic weapons, so I just stole one and put it on this ship for now. For aft weapons, I have the Trilithium Enhanced Ion Directional Phaser Beam Array as the first weapon here. This guy has a Firing Cycle Haste as a passive proc, and then also the 2-piece with a particular console from its mission gives me a passive Firing Cycle Haste for all my other energy weapons. This is from the New Frontiers arc. Right here, Beyond the Nexus. This is a fun short mission that does feel a little bit like you're back in Star Trek The Next Generation, combined with a certain arc that you don't have to play through anymore called Spectres. But anyway, if you combine this guy with the reinforced armaments, then you're able to get a lot of firing cycle haste for your weapons. You could also go through a turret build with phasers, and you still get that proc too. So yeah, I mean, it's a really great weapon and set overall. All right, so for the next after Omni, I'm using the cunning beam for kinetic damage. There is technically a 2-piece stuff that you're seeing with all the procs for these weapons. In my final build, that 2-piece set will not be there, but I'll get to that later. My last one is plasma, and of all the rest of them inside the game, I mean, basically any plasma weapon works because any plasma weapon basically has something that gives additional threat generation. This one gives a disable, which is why I personally like it a lot. You could rearrange some of these other weapons if you got tier 6 reputation, but with tier 5 and things, this is, in my opinion, what seems to be working the best for me. For my space set stuff here, I'm using the Lucari 3-piece, just because from a slightly non-selfish taking standpoint, this is the set that's kind of the best. With the deflector, you get a lot of radiation damage resistance rating, which even if you look at my passive stats, radiation is still the lowest one of all of them. Even with the deflector giving me a lot of radiation resistance. And most legend is just because of the sets. The Lucari 3-piece, what it does is it allows the regenerative shield overflow to go from 2.5 kilometers out to 5 kilometers. 5 kilometers is special because 5 kilometers is the same radius as command distract fire. So basically, if your allies are within that radius, they get a little bit of damage resistance rating, plus they get a little bit of shield regeneration from your shields. So it gives them a lot of survival overall inside of the full things inside of combat. For my warp core, because I don't have something like plasmonic leech down here in my consoles, I had to get something from the fleet that gave me weapon power cost reduction. Now the two options for fleet that you can do is Colony Tier 1 from Renewable Energy that gives you elite fleet space warp cores, which are good. The better ones are from Spire Research Tier 3. Tier 3, I think, is like the best upgrade of all of them in the game because it gives you access to the Elite Plasma Integrated Warp Core. So in case you don't have a space set that requires a warp core, this is the one that you should be going for. Also, Spire Research Tier 3 gives you access to vulnerability locators, which are tactical consoles that, alongside the damage you get from them, they also give critical chance, which are pretty important for energy weapons. Now for stuff like torpedoes, you want a lot more of critical severity. That's just because of how some of the math works inside the game. For this ship, I'm used because my little fleet, because this is a captain in our second fleet, and I haven't bothered to ask people to get invited to the other fleet for its stuff from the store. I'm still using vulnerability exploiters on this captain, just because it's the next best option for in terms of damage overall. I would have actually gone with this route instead for upgrading these, just because that would have just been fun. But the problem is, of all of the crafting options for tactical for its consoles, this is the only tactical console that doesn't scale the same way that the fleet tactical consoles do for other energy types. I don't know why Cryptic has these ratios different when, like for instance, if you have a tactical crafted console of like Polaron, and you look at the tactical fleet version of Polaron, the only difference between the two is just that the fleet one has some crit severity or critical chance or some other passive thing alongside the raw damage. This one, the raw damage is also just flat out much lower from your crafted version versus the one from your fleet. Like if you look at a Mark 15 Epic Directed Energy Distribution Manifold Tactical Console, its overall damage is lower than a Mark 12 Ultra Rare Beam Console for tactical from your fleet. I don't know why it's so drastically different, but it is. So only use Directed Energy Distribution Manifolds if you're getting them from missions. Don't upgrade them. You should just be going for fleet for these tactical consoles when you're looking at stuff for the extreme end game inside the game. Just going to throw that out there in case you really want to mirror this build for yourself. Alright, so for my engineering consoles themselves, to go with the Trilithium Enhanced Beam Array, I have this console called the Reinforced Armaments. It gives me some additional power transfer rate, which is good for DPS, plus additional hull capacity and additional healing whenever I'm using healing type abilities. 2-piece proc, as I already said. Oh, 2-piece proc, as I already said. There you are. Gives me additional fire and cycle haste and flight speed, which is pretty nice. Right now, because I'm using vulnerability exploiters, which give me critical chance, instead of like vulnerability locators from here, which give me which give you critical chance for your weapons. I wanted something that gave me some more critical chance, and so I have the assembly module. There are a couple other ones that give you more, but for single pieces, this one's kind of like the best one there. I also have the obfuscation screen that comes with the Walker class. Technically, if you were in a pre-made group and you knew there's going to be a lot of good DPS in your group, this would not be needed at all. However, since I constantly do random TFOs at really non-prime times, about a third of the time, I actually end up having the highest DPS of everyone in the random TFO. And so, like, if I'm stuck in a really tough mission, like for instance Hive Onslaught Advanced, where I'm getting hit by literally everything, and I'm the only one actually able to take down Borg cubes, it might get to the point that I eventually have to use the console just so I can get some healing back. When I'm eventually, after a few minutes, running out of all my healing options otherwise. If I didn't have that problem, then this will only be needed if I was running elite missions inside the game. However, because of the reward structure of the advanced TFOs inside the game right now, there isn't very much incentive to run elite missions in the game right now. Especially because I'm trying to grind a lot of fleet marks for my fleet. I'm not running elite missions as much anymore. Just whenever I'm asked, do I go into a mission for swords for that. I still use the Pro Field Projector for this captain, just because it is still the best tanking and survival console in the game. The DP arm console is still good. The healing is not as good as it used to be, but it's still decent for damage resistance rating. The big thing for this build, because I am so low on damage, this guy's directed energy damage passively on this console helps to supplement the overall tactical console damage that I'm losing because I'm using the beams instead of a specific energy type. That's really the biggest factor of this here. Alongside that, these guys here also add damage. This guy is a sustained radiant field from the Iconian reputation. It gives me some additional all weapon damage. It gives me some additional bonuses to shield to the two different types of healing inside the game. The 2-piece bonus, once I have the radiant energy weapon that will be replacing this guy, I will get some additional hull, so that this ship can be at almost 100,000 hull, which is a really nice place to be at. Yeah. The Proton drive actuator is another one that I like, or the one I'm using for this build. Not necessarily because of the stats here, even though the stats here are nice. Initial shield capacity is nice. The big factor here is that the 2-piece bonus with this weapon here, the Antiproton weapon, is that it gives me more directed energy damage. What do you know? All these seem to be doing the same thing, huh? It also gives some additional crit severity, which is nice, but it's kind of pocket change overall. And this weapon is the Proton Particle Stabilizer. The big factor of this weapon is so that the Dyson Proton weapon can use beam fire at will. In the passive here, it sets at 2. It allows this weapon, even though the text is wrong here, allows for beam fire at will to be used with the weapon. It also adds 3% critical chance, which is a big deal on this ship. Then, of course, tactical consoles, I have vulnerability exploiters instead of locators. Once I have vulnerability locators here, the assimilated module will be replaced by neural infusion circuits, which is from the lobby store. I've already upgraded the tier 5, or sorry, Mark 15 Epic. I'm ready to replace it whenever I get those other tactical consoles on the ship. These are the passive stats for the ship right now. Whenever I get an additional 6% crit severity from these guys, it'll be at almost 20% critical chance, which is basically the magic number when it comes to tanking. If you have 20% critical chance, then you can increase the crit severity a lot more, and your jumps in DPS become more substantial. Keep in mind, a tactical captain can easily get to around 40 to 50% crit severity if they spam all of their profession abilities, because their profession just does a lot more damage than the rest of them. It's just the way it is. In terms of the skill tree, the only thing that's different here is that I have less accuracy and defense and more crit severity and crit chance than normal, just because of the bridge officer CD. As you can see here, this ship has a lieutenant pilot and a ensign in intelligence, which I'm fully using for their seats themselves. I'm using an ability called Attack Pattern Lambda, which it gives bonus accuracy to myself, and it also gives a potential to confuse enemies for 5 seconds. When you combine that with Beam Fire Will, it means I'm getting a lot of accuracy. That's counteracting the debuff of accuracy on Beam Fire Will. So this is pretty powerful. Confuses are also really nice against enemies. Confuse is more powerful whenever you have lots of enemies that you're fighting, because then it's more likely that enemies will be ended up attacking themselves. When it's just 1 or 2 enemies, then it's not as powerful, but it's still nice. For most maps inside the game, Attack Pattern Lambda is pretty powerful. Also, this is a build that I'm doing without any duty officers whatsoever, because I haven't gotten to the point that I felt that I really needed to put duty officers on this character. I've got a bazillion characters, so just kind of the way it works. The rest is pretty standard. Tactical team with some beam fire wills. Engineering team for healing. And then I have Marines power to shields and Marines power to weapons, because I have that. I have those powers in my space traits with reverse shield polarity. Beta target lock is just good, just kind of the way it works. And hazard emitters 1 and charge of shield strike 2 are very good heal over time for your hull and your shields. Plus, this also gives some additional shield resistance. And then I have Gravity Well 1 for its control and pull for additional threat generation, and to make it easier to keep enemies outside of my rear arcs. For my specializations, I'm using Miracle Worker Temper Operative because I'm a science captain. If I was not a science captain, I would go with Miracle Worker Command. As Darkblade talked about on his video, you can, if you go for a very offensive playstyle, and you don't care a little bit less about raw survivability, Intel Strategist gives you a lot of nice bonuses for damage and for a couple of taunts in there. A lot of that comes down to your personal preference, and also whether you're strictly going to be going in space for tanking, or whether you're going to be balanced between space and ground. A lot of our DPS guys just prefer space. I'm someone that I like to do random CFOs and just play everything. And I'm decent at everything. here are my traits. There's still some of these are pretty bugged in terms of not being able to use them. Some of them aren't working properly. There's a patch coming out tomorrow morning, so it should help solve some of that, I think. I think also the big reason for the patch is to release the new featured TFO, but that might be speculation on my part. For leveling, I'm using History Will Remember with Emergency Weapon Cycle and Shoot Overload. At the moment, I have Honored Dead as a placeholder. He will be replaced by something else. It's literally just a placeholder for now. It's just a placeholder. This will be taken out by something else later on. When I want to take all the tier 6 and start experimenting with things, I will definitely not have Honored Dead in one of my 4 traits here. I might have it in a 5th trait, but it depends upon how different traits start stacking. Yeah, I think that's basically it for this build video. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Next couple weeks, I'll be going over how exotic and radiation damage works inside the game, as well as going over a science tank build in 2 to 3 weeks. So that should be pretty exciting as well. So yeah, anyway, thank you all for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.